with this video, we are setting up our sewing samples for our hand sewing samples. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have all your pieces. So this one we have, and the other side, some more dancing avocados along with breakfast. Okay. Then we also have one kind of long wide piece that is out of some kind of print. Could be clouds, could be a variety of different ones, but it's a print. Okay, and there's just one. See, that's the wrong side. That is the right side, as we talked about. And then we have same size as this. Okay, same size, but it is out of muslin. Okay, so that's that whitish, off-white colored fabric rectangles. So there should be 1, 2, 3, 4. So you should have a total of 4 of these. Okay, so as you can tell, I kind of laid them out a little funny. I have 4. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now, if you see little strings, like mine has some strings, you can go ahead and pull those strings off. It won't hurt anything. It won't cause any issues. It's okay. Just to get rid of it and to neaten up your sampler. Okay. Let's put that in the trash. Okay. So we'll set that aside for a minute, and then you should have 2 more muslin pieces, and they are square. So you have 2 of these little pieces that are squares. First thing you're going to want to do, if you have it available, which I'm assuming most everybody has some kind of an iron, if not, you might be able to put your hand on it and might be able to press it down a little bit and get some of the wrinkle out. But if not, then we'll just work with what we can. But if you have an iron, the first thing you want to do is you're going to want to iron this so it is nice and flat to start with, and that's every single piece you've got. So I like to make sure that I'm going from my largest piece first to my shortest piece first. Okay, so my biggest pieces are little dancing avocados. These are going to end up living together, but for now I'm going to iron them one at a time. I'm trying to make sure my iron has turned back on. Okay, make sure your iron is set at the proper setting. Especially if you have an ohm iron. I have a Rowenta. As you can tell, I leave it sitting here. It has been dropped before, hence the tape. But if you look on the back, you will see it has settings. I have a dial in here for settings. And I have, since I'm dealing with cotton, I have some water in it. If it's a home iron, typically you want to use distilled water. It keeps minerals from building up inside your iron and creating a whole lot of other problems like nasty bits of rust spitting out on your fabric. And you want to put it on automatic steam. So first things first, we've got this. Make sure your setting is on cotton because these are 100% cotton. And you're just going to do a nice press. And if you have it on auto steam, it will automatically put out some steam, right? Then I set that aside. Do the next one. And this will go pretty quickly. I did press them before we cut them out, so hopefully this will take like no time. And if you have plenty of space on your ironing board, you can even potentially lay a couple next to each other. Just make sure you iron them individually. And that the fringe is also pressed out. Now, if you were having, see how this one's a little torqued. This one's a little bit torqued, I can tell. If you were to pull the 2 corners, that would actually fix the torquing that's happening. It's just sometimes they get a little off, what we call off grain. They are not quite sitting the way that they should be. So I have actually not quite pressed that one properly, so I'm going to flip that over because I like to have all of my fringe proper. This also has an issue with grain, so I'm going to pull that straight by pulling on each corner. The grain, and And then repress that back down. Okay, so it's nice and flat. Lay that over there. And then I'm just going to keep going. This one has a pretty nasty. So if I need a little bit more steam, I have a button on here that has like a little puff right there. I press that a couple times and it puts a little bit more steam in than what it would do on its own. Okay. Sorry for the shaking. Oh, this one I can already tell it's a little off grain because I'm looking at it and it's just a little bit not quite straight. So we are going to go ahead and pull on my two corners to make sure they're straight. You can also, even if you're not sure, you can go ahead and pull that and you'll kind of notice how it kind of straightens up and squares off a little bit better. But that is called straight, getting the fabric back on grain. And it's just from the process of going through the mills and stuff. So like this one looks okay. It's a nice small piece, so it's not so bad. I notice this corner is turned up, so I'm flipping that over. One. And you want to keep your square pieces. This is also why I'm doing the squares last, because we're going to go ahead and press our squares in half. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and lay it flat. Then I'm going to take this side and fold it over to the other side. It's a square, so even if you were going to right left, it's not going to be a big deal. And then what I like to do is I like to run my finger across that fold so it stays. And then I will bring this over here, or bring the iron to it, and I will go ahead, starting in the middle, and working my way out, I will go ahead and press that nice. And to make sure I don't have anything looking funky, I like to flip it over and then press that. So now you have an even smaller little rectangle. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing to the second square. So to both squares, both of the squares get folded in half and pressed nicely. See, I've got a random string. So you're going to find those. That's okay. So we're just going to fold that in half. Make sure it's lined up, because I'm going to be looking for that when I grade. And then we're going to press it nice. Okay. And then I'm going to flip that over. I'm making sure everything's lined up. This one got a little bit off, so I'm going to line that back up. Ooh, that's hot. Careful not to burn yourself. You will end up burning yourself, but that's okay. Okay. There we go. As long as it's no worse than a sunburn. Okay, so I've got that nice and pretty and nice and neat. Now what you're going to do next is you're going to take these three. Take 3 of these ones, of these muslin ones, okay? You're going to take 3 of these, and you are going to draw a line, and I'm going to show you. So you need to get a ruler so that we can draw a line. You can also use your measuring tape. I like to use my clear ruler, but because I know some of you don't have that in your little box of tricks right now, I am going to pull out mine, my measuring tape, wherever I've hidden it for myself. I've hidden myself. Okay. Woohoo. So I have a million and one measuring tape, so it's not a big deal. So my measuring tape, come on, measuring tape. So if I'm looking at my measuring tape, got my measuring tape, okay? So we're going to learn how to read this measuring tape really quick. As you can tell, this says 60 inches, right? 60 inches. I'm trying to get it focused, I'm sorry. Anyway, 60 inches. So I'm just looking at this section right here. Let me get it closer. Boop, boop. Maybe that'll fix it. Come on, focus. Focus. There we go. That usually does it. Maybe not. Come on. My hammer's a little slow today. I'm sorry, guys. Doesn't want to. Okay. So on this, Maybe if I do it this way. On this, there we go. I just need a better background. Okay, so on this, we have a full 1 inch. If this is 1 inch, now it's saying no again. There it goes. If this is 1 inch, then this is 1/2 inch. And so the middle of that one is 1/4 inch, because it's in quarters. Each one of these little smaller ones is 1/8 inch. Okay, so we got 1, 1/4, or 1/16. Yeah, that's 1/4. That's 1/8. Goes all the way down to a 1/16. My apologies. So 1/8 is this second little mark, this second mark, right? So if I was looking for 1/8, I would be looking for that one. We are going to mark this at 1/2 inch. So I'm going to look for the, or 1/4 inch. So I'm going to look for my line here. So if that was 1 inch, I'm going to look for my line there. And then we're going to be marking it also at 1 inch. So what you're going to do is you take, so on mine, it's hard to kind of tell where that mark is, but that's okay. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pencil. That's right, a plain Jane pencil. See, nice graphite, right? And I'm going to have to set this on something because my ironing board is not terribly thick. So I'm going to use a notebook for now, okay? So I'm going to rotate this so you can see it. So I am, there we go. So what I'm going to do, come under here, is I'm going to take one of them, just taking one, and I'm going to mark 1/4 inch up. So I'm going to go, this is my 1 inch. I really wish it would focus. It's having so many issues right now. I'll bring it down, maybe that will help. There we go. Maybe it just wants to be a little closer. Feel the love. Okay, so maybe this will help. There we go. So if this is my 1 inch, this is my 1/2 inch, I need to mark 1/4 inch. That's 1/4 inch. Another way that we could do this is I know I'm going to need a total of 1 1/4 inches. So I'm going to go 1 inch and 1/4. I'm going to slide that up. So my 1 1/4 is lined up to the edge. Okay. And then I'm going to mark my 1 inch. And then I'll come up here and I will mark the very end, and the very end will be at the 1 inch. So you will have 2 marks. One is at 1/4 inch. The other is a 1 inch. Okay. So then you will also go down and do the same thing down here. I'm lining up my 1 1/4 to the edge of the fabric, and I am marking where the 1 inch line is. That is my 1/4, and then where the end is my 1 inch. Okay. The other way that you can do this is by using a using a seam gauge. Anyway, the other thing you can use is a regular ruler. So my particular ruler has something similar. So that would be 1 1/4 inch. But you can also just mark the 1/4 first. Okay. And then you're going to draw a line. So you're going to take a ruler and you're going to line it up from one end to the other for the 1/4 inch. And draw, woohoo, I didn't mark that one very well. Mark your line. Okay, mine is a little off, so I'm going to fix that before I go any further. Okay, so, and then using my measuring tape, I'll mark the next part. So 1 inch, that end on 1 inch, on this end. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and mark my line from one end to the other. End up looking like that. 1/4 of an inch. So this is 1/4 of an inch from the edge. Okay, see, 1/4 of an inch from the edge. All right, and then this one is at 1 1/4 from the edge. So what happens is that this ends up being, the lines will end up being 1 inch apart. Oops. 1 inch apart. Okay? Like that. So the first one is at 1/4 of an inch. This line will end up being at 1 1/4 of an inch, so that both of these lines are 1 inch apart. Now we're going to repeat this process onto these other two. And for the sake of you guys seeing someone do it the way you do it, oops, turn around, I'm going to continue to mark it using my measuring tape and then using a straight edge to mark the line difference. So I sort of like to mark, so I'll mark it here, and that's my 1/4. And then I like to mark a middle spot. That's my 1/4. If you have a seam gauge, which I couldn't find of mine, there is a little slide rule on it, and you can slide that slide rule down to the 1/4 inch and then line it up, line that little blue mark to the edge of your fabric and then just mark it on the very end. So if I had my slide, it would slide here and I'd be able to go bloop, bloop. But I don't. So much. There's that. Okay. And then I'm going to go back, and if some people have to do it in 2 sections, that's okay. So I'm marking, that's at the 1 inch, then this one's at the 1 inch, and this one's at the 1 inch. Okay? And then now I'm going to draw my 2 lines. Oops, I keep trying to lose this measuring tape. So I am drawing the first line. I'm trying to line up my 3 lines, my 3 little notches. I'm drawing my line. You don't have to draw it super dark, just enough for you to see. And this one, oops, just let it go. That one's marked. So that's my second one done. Okay, and then go ahead and mark the third one as well. This one, mark, lining up my outermost edges. Just mark 1. That's a 1/4 inch from the edge. And here's the second one. And that is at 1 1/4 or 1 inch from the line. So now, what do we do? Okay, flip this over like this. Okay, so that, I'll put you back up here so you can see. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece, we are going to go ahead and flip this over like this, whoop, okay, so that the side that's the furthest away is facing us, okay, and you're going to write your name, pencil usually writes nice. I have to create a little attention, but it's okay. Lonnie. You want first and last names. Because usually if you're in the shop, if you lose something, I will throw it away if it has no name. So I put my name on here. Okay. And then we are going to label this one whip stitch. This one is the whip stitch. W-H-I-P stitch, S-T-I-T-C-H. Okay, stitch. Whip stitch. Okay? That's one. Now the next one, you're going to do the same thing. So you've got it laying on me so my lines are facing me. I'm going to flip those over. Then I'm going to write my name, Mahealani. And I'm going to write slip stitch. S-L-I-P S-T-I-T-C-H. Okay? So I've got my name, and then I've got slip stitch. Okay? Set that aside. We still have ironing to do on that one. And then on this one, once again, I have my markings facing me. I'm going to flip it over. So I'm writing on this bottom edge closest to me. Write my name. If you want to write in cursive, you can. Just have to take it a little slow. And you're going to write cross stitch. C-R-O-S-S-S-T-I-T-C-H. Okay? Now, to help you study, I would also suggest you write the other two possible names for this stitch. That would be catch stitch, C-A-T-C-H, which is what I usually refer to it as for this particular class. But I also like cross stitch because it's kind of what the stitch does. So catch stitch, C-A-T-C-H, S-T-I-T-C-H. The other one is a little long. The English use it, Europe, a lot of other parts of the world. They call it the herringbone stitch. I know, that's a long one. H-E-R-R-I-N-G B-O-N-E. Stitch. S-T-I-T-C-H. So, see, my name is in cursive. And then the other one is herringbone stitch. H-E-R-R-I-N-G-B-O-N-E. Stitch. S-T-I-T-C-H. And the other two possible names are catch stitch and cross stitch. So I would write that on there. It will help you to remember as you're working. So this one's good, needs pressing too, so we're going to set that aside. Now you remember these two that we just pressed, okay? Take the two folded sides, line them up to face each other, like this. Kind of like that, okay? Like that. And so what you're going to do is you're going to write on the outer side, the side that has the two edges, not the fold side, you're going to write your name. And you're going to write the word closures. Okay? Ta-da! See? Closures. Whoops. Closures. You're going to repeat that on that side. So my name. And if it helps you to remember which way they go, maybe it's a good idea to write them in opposite so that you know which way they face. And I'll show you in just a minute. So what I'm saying is that on the top sides, I would write closures. Okay? Top sides, write closures. The bottom sides, sign your name. So if they get separated, you can find them. Because what's going to happen is we are going to do this with them for our closures. Okay? That is what we're going to do. We're going to be doing that for our closure. Now, to make this process a little bit easier for my poor class, because usually there's something to indicate the overlap and also to alleviate some confusion, we are going to go ahead figure out one thing and mark the line where it needs to line up to. So we are going to go ahead, we won't get it that way. Nope, we're not going to do it. I'm mean. Okay, so that way, yeah, we'll do that. So we're going to mark. No, I think it'll work with a quarter. Yeah, I can mark 5/8. So we're going to just mark 3/4 of an inch, or 5/8 of an inch rather, sorry. 5/8. So if you're looking at this, oops, let me turn you around, at this, we are going to mark 5/8. So this long line and 2 little ones over. So 5/8. It's the halvesy point between the next little longer line. Might as well get used to it. You can use your seam gauge if you want. Oops. 5/8. Okay. So 5/8. 5/8. You will thank me later. Okay. And then you can lay down. So I've got 5/8 marked only on one side. Okay. Line that up. And draw a line. Okay. Oh, I got off. Not good. Draw that line again. Okay. And that line is my overlap line for my closure. Okay, like that. All right. So it will end up hanging out like this. But for now, we're going to set this, lay them one on top of the other, and set that aside. The other way that we set up our pieces, I'll set that aside, still have some pressing to do on that, is you don't have to mark anything on the printed piece, but the last one here, you're going to hold this, put this here. Let me turn this around, it's still easier. And we're going to mark, we are going to mark, because this is a 4-inch piece. Okay, we're going to mark 1 inch from the cut edge on the long sides only. So 1 on the end, 1 in the middle, 1 on the end. And then I'm going to do the other side as well. So now I'm going to turn my piece around, see, 1 inch. Oops. 1 inch halfway, 1 inch on the other end. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch. Okay? And then I take my ruler. You can use your measuring tape as well. That does work. Takes a little finagling, but it can be done. And then we're just going to draw a line. Make sure it's a nice straight line. It will make this sample much easier. Then I'm going to line up these other two, and I'm going to draw that line. Okay? So I've got 2 lines, one on this side, one on that side. Okay? Like that. All right. So on this side, what do you think I'm going to have you do? I'm going to have you write your name. And I like cursive, so I'm going to use cursive. And I'm going to write the word thread marking. THREADMARKING. Okay, so my name, thread marking for one side. Now, I'm going to take this, I'm going to flip it over. All right? So I can work on this side. This side, same idea. Name. And this side, I'm going to name that Flatlining. 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 Flat lining. Okay? Okay, so the top is like this, the bottom's like this. All right? So what you're going to want to do in a little bit is we're going to want to get our pins out, but we're going to end up doing that in just a minute. Okay? On this one, avocados, we're doing all of our markings first. One of the sides that has no selvage. Okay? Remember what selvage is? The woven part, right? We are going to do the same thing. We are going to mark 1 inch from the cut edge. 1 inch. That's not my best mark, but that's okay. 1 inch, 1 inch, and 1 inch. Okay? And then we're going to mark that whole line. I'm going to do mine in 2 because my little book is a little small. That's okay. We're going to make it work. Like I said, I'm just using a pencil. It marks just fine. I made sure to give you light colors so it won't be an issue to see. Okay, so that's my line. What are we going to mark on this one? This time we're going to flip this buddy around so we can see the selvage is nice and thick, so we're going to use that. So write your name. See, there's my line. And then on this side, we are going to write Backstitch. It's kind of long. Backstitch. Plain seam. Plainseam. Okay? So I've got my name. Then I've got backstitch, plain seam. Oh no, don't do that. Backstitch, plain seam. All right. Normally we would do this stitch on a sewing machine, but you need to be able to put your bags together. So we're going to do this by hand. All right. So I'm going to move this out of the way now so that we can finish our pressing. You are absolutely going to want to have your pins to utilize because you're going to need them to hold things in place. Make sure to put them out of the way, okay? So, first things first, we'll do the easy ones. When you pin, I'm just going to use this one piece. Okay, when you pin, you have 2 different ways that you can pin. I'll use this one since it's here. So you have your line. If you make sure your seam allowance is up when you pin, this is easier for righties than lefties. Lefties, it's going to feel awkward because you're going to have to, pin it in a different way. If you are pinning with the line, parallel to, or parallel to the seam allowance, you're going to want to make sure that your pin head is in your right hand and that you put it in going from right to left, okay? And when you pin, you want to make sure that you are going in an angle automatically when you have 2 pieces of fabric, because if you don't, what's going to happen, I'll show you with this, what's going to happen is if I have this edge, I'm lining up this edge perfectly together, I'll show you what's going to happen. If I were to stick my pin straight down, if I were to stick my pin, come on, there we go, straight down, and then pin like this, it is going to offset your pin, your alignment. So when you get ready to do corner seams at some point, you're not going to want to do that, okay? So make sure once you have everything lined up, you actually go in at an angle and come out at an angle. And your pin should always be, pinpoint and the head should always be on top. This even goes for the same when we're sewing our actual pieces, okay? So you have two options. There's that, sewing with the line. The other option is sewing perpendicular, pinning perpendicular to the stitch line. So the way that we're going to do that is, once again, make sure you also go into your fabric at an angle and come right back out. What this means is that we are going to pin straddling this line. We're going to play, you know, like this is the bridge and we're going to go under it. It's hard to do on a camera. So down and up. And you want to make sure that fabric doesn't move on you, okay? So the way that I always tell my students, you're first going to always pin the ends, and then you'll pin the middle. Since this is a small piece, I would probably pin the ends and then put two pins. So what you're going to do, we're going to set this one up first. This is for thread marking and flatlining. This beautiful flashing piece, that pretty side or the faded side, right? This is faded, see how it's not as bright? We're going to take the pretty side and put that down on our table, okay? And then we're going to take our piece that we just wrote on with this writing on top, and we're going to center that on that piece, okay? See how my ends are just a little bit long? That's okay. All right, these two edges should match up, but it should be centered, so same amount of distance from either side. And then you're going to take your pin, and for this one, I'm going to go ahead and pin perpendicular. So make sure your pin head is in the direction of the seam allowance, okay? You can pick it up and pin it like this as well, okay? That's okay. All right, so your pin head is towards your seam allowance. This is so that if we were to put it through a sewing machine, then it would automatically have the pin heads to the right. Okay, because the seam allowance will always be to the right when feeding things into a sewing machine. Okay, so this one, I'm going to go ahead and pin the end on this one as well. Okay, and then I'm going to put two in the middle. So we're going to go pin in the middle, pin, whoops, doesn't want to do it. Pin in the middle. Okay, there we go. Make sure it is not buckling anywhere. Make sure it's flat. And mine seems to be pretty good, so it'll look like that. Okay, now you will do the same thing on this side. Now I sometimes, because it's a small piece, I'm going to rotate it toward me, but you don't have to. So pin, or you can pin it this way if you want, or you can practice both kinds of pinning. So maybe I want to pin parallel to the line or on the line. One. And then I'm going to pin this in too. And then I'm going to put one in the middle. Okay. If you put a little bit of tension on, it's easy to move. So that should be flat lining and thread marking. Okay. You've got it pinned to the pretty sample piece. Okay. So I'm going to set this aside. Ooh, that's open. I don't want to lose it. Okay. Then we've got our two closures, which we've already set up. We're going to set those aside. And then we've got these two, this fun thing, right? So I would seam serging. See that serged? The salvage. Take the salvage. See, this is why vocabulary is important. The salvage edge facing towards you. Lay your piece flat, and then that way your salvage will be towards you, and you will line up your cut edge at the very top. Don't worry about it if the bottom does not line up. Mine will not line up. That is okay. All right, we want this top cut edge, the top cut edge where my seam allowance is, to be lined up. Okay, and then pick how you want to pin it. It doesn't matter, neither. However is good for you is how you can pin it. I am not, there are certain things I am very strict about how to pin, but for your class right now, you do not. So this one's large enough that I'm going to go a pin in the middle, and then I'm going to put a pin in the middle of that. See, so I've got a pin on either end. Now I'm going to put a pin in the middle of that because it's a little bit long. And it's cotton, but it's good to get in the habit of remembering how to properly pin things, especially when we get ready to do your bags, okay? So just like that, okay? See? There's that. Ooh, see, I'm losing a pin. Not good. Whoops. See, we all went awry. All right, so I have a total of 5 in mine. Oh, this thing is killing me not focusing as well as I need it to. Okay, there it goes. Okay, and notice on the back, I think it's because it's twilight, it doesn't line up on the bottom. That is okay. Just want it to line up at the top. And set that aside. Now we have to get back to ironing, but we're still going to need our pins. So what you're going to do, and remember these three, our 3 friends right here with the lines we drew. So the first thing you're going to want to do, put your lines facing the table, okay? You're going to fold it on the first line. So this first line here, that's where you're going to fold it. And I've got the lines facing down, and this is so that I can see them, okay? Usually we would thread mark this, what we call thread marking, which you're going to learn more about in a minute. However, because, there we go, our thread marking will take longer, so I'm trying to alleviate that. That's why I had you draw them on the side I wanted it anyway. So we're folding it on that line, and you can finger press that first. Kind of helps usually. That means you're just taking your fingers, running it across. It kind of helps it to go in the direction you want it to, and then you're going to press it. Oh, my iron didn't cut off for too long. You can pull on it, a little tug will help it. Oop, my iron did turn off, so we're going to give it just a second. So I do have to wait it heat up a little bit. So while I'm waiting for it to do that, I'm going to go ahead and finger press the other one, flipping it over. And you'll be surprised at how much the cotton will kind of be nice to you. That's why we have you use cotton. Okay, let's see if this is heated up now. There it goes. You can hear the steam coming out of it. Okay, so there's one. See? Fold it on that line. Fold it on that first line and pressed up. Okay? So then what we're going to do is we're going to fold it up the second line. Whoop. Okay? Finger press it on that line so you make sure it's lined up properly. And the good thing is your ironing table will typically be a little warm still from when you just pressed that. So utilize that to your advantage. But don't burn your finger like I just did. Okay. Now I've got this properly pinned, and see? Or properly pressed. So that's turned under, and then that's folded under. So now we want to make sure that's not going to go anywhere. So we're going to take your pin and pin it close to the fold, parallel to the fold. It's just going to help it to stay until we're ready to do our, until we're ready to utilize this actual sample. Okay, or you're ready, because we'll get to it quicker. So I have 3 in here. Okay, and that's what you're going to do for each one of these. All right, so my slip stitch is ready. I'm going to bring back my whip stitch. That was the one I was in the process of. So I'm going to press that down. Ooh, it's making good sounds. It's singing at me. Okay, and then we're going to make sure we fold that up. Sometimes you got to wait just a second because that my iron's really hot. On cotton, it gets really hot, so just be careful not to burn yourself, okay, guys? Self-care is important. Okay? There we go. Yep. See how so on this one, I got a little bit off. Okay? That's easily fixed. I just open that back up, and I will press that back open because it's got a bit of an attitude. I didn't do the whole thing. This side was fine. That side was not. And so now, I'm going to cool it off for a second because that's really hot. That's why I messed up. And I'm going to make sure that this time when I finger press it that I am getting it on that line. This is important. Okay, and then I can try that again. Okay. If your iron runs out of water, please make sure to refill it. It helps to prevent scorching. Okay, so now I've got my whip stitch ready to go. I have that folded over. Boop, boop. I have that folded over, so 2 folds. So now I'm going to get my 3 pins, and I'm going to pin it parallel. And this is the way you're going to be holding it because this is where it's a hem. So it's all of this would be fabric, part of the garment. You're going to be dealing with it like this. I don't think I pinned the other one that way, but it's okay. Also, just pin that a little bit proper. So I'm going to take out that middle one because I pulled it a little bit. This is why we do ends and then pin the middle. I was distracted. Okay? So to make sure, I'm going to repin this properly, flipping my pin to face the correct way. As if this, I'm going to hold this in my hand like this. Okay, so I've repinned my slip stitch. Now we've got one more. See, there's one more. This is for my catch stitch. So I flip this up, all the writing's up the top. I'm folding this on the quarter. And the quarter. Then we're going to press that. Don't worry guys, we're almost done with prepping for our sewing samples. Okay. So that's pressed, that's that first fold. Now we're going to fold over again. The second fold. And really this line should be lining up. If not, you may be pulling it in one direction or another. So, ooh, Hachamama. Okay. So making sure that I am lining that up properly. Okay. And some people like to flip it around. I want to get that side. Okay. And I'm going to, see, there we go. Fold it under. There we go. Now I'm going to use my 3 pins. Pin the first one on one end, then the second one, make sure it's nice and flat. Other end, and you're going to pin the middle of that. I want you to get into the habit of that. Pin the ends of the section you're working on, and then pin the middle. It will help you take care of some other issues that can occur if you don't. Okay? So it makes sure it ensures that the fabric is distributed even along that section, because sometimes as you work, sometimes you end up pulling it, your hand causes it to stretch, and if that occurs, then it's distributed evenly throughout the whole section instead of just one little section that is full of nothing but gather, which is not what we don't want. So, okay, so that is how we prep all of our sewing samples. Once again, when you are done, you will have 3 that have a hem. This is the cross stitch or catch stitch. This is the slip stitch. This is the, let's see if this helps, add a little shine. Ooh, that did not help. Again. Okay. Whip stitch. Then the two pieces that are pinned together with wrong sides facing out. Backstitch. Our two darling closures, we're just letting them kind of hang out together. And then the one that has the plain fabric with the fashiony, pretty fabric, that is flatlining and thread marking. Those are the samples that we're going to be doing. All right?